Fishing like a local isn't just about catching fish. It's about connecting with the environment and the people who call it home. It's about hearing the stories and traditions that have been passed down for generations and sharing unforgettable moments with the people you meet along the way. Fishing like a local is having an experience that stays with you forever. And with Fishing Booker, you can experience it too, no matter where you are. Discover your next adventure on Fishing Booker.
I'm Erica Lynn, and we all know the ocean is the most demanding environment on Earth, consistently testing the reliability and durability of our equipment. When you spend as much time fishing as I do, you know that reliable gear is essential for staying on the water. This is why I went with the Abyss battery to power my trolling motor, electronics, and outboard. The guys at Abyss Battery are rattling the saltwater industry by manufacturing performance marine batteries specifically designed for sonar, outboards, trolling motors, and electronic fishing reels. They're also Bluetooth compatible, so I found checking battery statuses right on your phone while you're out on the water is a huge game changer. To learn more about why Abyss batteries are used by the pros and factory installed by premier boat builders, visit abyssbattery.com.
Hello and welcome to the Publicly Challenged Podcast. I'm your host, Luke Oswald, and I hope you join me on my quest for knowledge to become a better public land hunter, angler, and forager. Stick with this and who knows, maybe we will learn something together. Okay, so I'm sitting here and I'm talking to David Ross, and kind of been following you on social media for a while, and a lot of things you do intrigue me and want to get to know you a little bit more. So, David, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name's David. I'm out of the southern Arizona area. I've been hunting for about 4 to 5 years now. I'll be going into my fifth deer season at the end of this year and my second elk season, so I'm pretty excited for that too. Yeah, I'm a nurse by trade. Did a little time in the Army for a while, hanging out in the Air Force Reserves now, and got a little family at home, wife and a toddler. And that's pretty much me.
So first off, I want to say thank you for your service, David, and what you guys do and sacrifice for all of us. It truly means a lot. So just kind of curious, I know you hunt now, and you said you've been doing it for 4 years, but I mean, kind of like early childhood life, there was no hunting, no anything like that. Have you always lived in Arizona?
Yeah, I'm a native of Tucson, born and raised. Always lived there. Never did any hunting as a kid. I've always had people around, kind of connections and things that hunted and stuff, but it was never something that I did as a kid. My dad used to take us fishing, a fair bit. We'd go camping up in the mountains and take little stock trout out of the lake and eat those up, which was always a ton of fun. And still love to do that, of course. But no, never got into hunting until I was in my late 20s when I first started.
So I'm just kind of curious then, because I see a lot of your culinary dishes that you create, and they're pretty epic. I mean, was that something that like led you into hunting, or was it just where'd you pick that up?
Yeah, I think it's kind of worked off of each direction. So I really started hunting for the food. That was the biggest thing for me, starting to try to be thoughtful about where my food comes from and have more engagement in that process. We do a little bit in the garden, not a whole lot, but really being able to get out and hunt, that's a really tangible thing that I can do. It's a thing that I can do. It's very, gives me a chance to get outside, gives me a chance to interact with nature, but then bring home some really high quality food. And it's not an easy thing to do, but it's easier than trying to figure out, which butcher shop sells meat that's ethically sourced and things like that. So I know if I go out and take meat from the environment, that I'm sourcing my meat ethically. So starting to think about my food sources and where things come from and how I'm interacting with that ecosystem led me into hunting, and that was when I really started.
So when you first started hunting, what kind of resources or what'd you go to? I mean, as an onset hunter, it's kind of difficult, I imagine, because you didn't really have a mentor or anybody that was around you that was hunting. What'd you do?
Yeah, I've been really lucky. My first hunt was actually with a buddy of mine that I went to nursing school with, and I think we had just graduated, or we'd been graduated for a little while, and he invited me out on a quail hunt. So I took my Mossberg 500 with a 16-inch barrel and a collapsible stock out on a quail hunt, and was terribly unsuccessful, but it was a ton of fun. It was great being out in the early morning, nice crisp morning. You hear a ton of birds moving around. We got a couple of shots off. I think he took a quail home, and that kind of really lit the fire under me. And I'm fortunate that I work with a bunch of hunters and things like that. So after that, I started working on the process of like, okay, now how do I actually hunt for real? So started talking to people and saying, how do I get into this? And then, it was just a coincidence, I guess, but Meat Eater was on Netflix. So just like every other adult onset hunter my age, it's like, oh, Steve Rinella, you see that guy, and he's doing all the right things. He's doing, the respectful hunting and sourcing of his food, and it's got a real food focus. So that was, a perfect thing to come up at a perfect time. So I'm probably the only guy in the world that turned a tactical shotgun into a bird gun. I got a longer barrel for it and put a wood stock on it. Started going from there. I applied for my first deer draw probably about a month after that quail hunt. I think is month or two maybe.
So was that a rifle hunt then?
Yeah, I applied for a Coues deer hunt in southern Arizona, and yeah, it was a rifle hunt. I got drawn. It was one of these units. We have a lot of units that are really easy to get drawn in the southern area of the state because they give out a whole bunch of tags, and they're really hard to hunt Coues deer. So
like 28-ish.
28-ish.
Yeah.
What?
28, like unit 28-ish, somewhere down that way.
I'm not sure where 28 is. I normally hunt 34. I apply for 33.
It's kind of on like I guess it'd be like the southeastern portion of the state, kind of by the Gila.
Okay. Yeah, I think all of the units like 36, 34, 35, those units are all pretty easy to get drawn in. So they give out, 400 tags a unit or something like that. So
nice. So unsuccessful.
Actually, I was successful in that hunt.
Okay.
Yeah, that was I had the buddy that I went quail hunting with. We put in on the same application with another buddy of mine that had hunted down in that unit before. And we spent a couple of days out between me and my buddies. We each went out on different days, kind of, whoever had work availability. We all made it out together a couple days, and then I'd go with one, go with the other. Kind of get the sense of glassing and things like that. I'd gotten a nice-ish pair of binoculars and set up a tripod and everything, and started that. It was really pretty hard hunt. I think I was out there for 8 days total, and the last day I was out, I was actually by myself. So it was, the one day, it was the last day I had to hunt. So I was like, well, I'm going to go out by myself and see what we can get together. And 3 p.m, I think, I saw the second buck that I'd seen on that trip, actually. And he was right across the canyon. I think it was a 175-yard shot, and was able to get set up and, was able to get myself calmed down. And then, of course, I had a misfire. So I had to restart the whole process. And then, I was able to, he was still right there, got myself set up again and calmed down, and was able to take a shot. And he didn't move an inch, and made my way across the canyon, and darn near couldn't find my way when I got to the other side, because I didn't know anything about, taking a picture of the area or looking for landmarks. So cruised around a little bit, found the deer, and then got there and was like, okay, well, I guess what do I do now?
So how'd you figure out what to do? I mean, was it just kind of guesswork? Did you watch some videos beforehand? How did it all play out?
I probably watched, Steve Rinella's how to, field dress a deer video 12 times. And then I had his guidebook as well. So it had all the decals. I wish I would have just brought it with me, but I had a pretty good idea from the video there, and, just kind of took my time. I think I shot the deer at 3, and it took me till about 5 to get him quartered and in my pack. But, was overall, a really cool experience, and just really happy to be successful after being out there getting at it for 8 days. So, pretty unique thing. I learned a bunch of lessons from that, namely to have a bigger pack so that I don't have game bags hanging over my shoulder when I'm trying to fall down a steep hill. But really cool, was able to get the meat home, got it on ice, got it to a processor that my stepdad knows. So I was able to help with that process as well. So really cool experience. And then we started experimenting with the food and checking out, all the things that, Coues deer are just great tasting animals. So checking out all the things that they've got to offer.
So I mean, at that point you were already pretty far into the culinary thing. So um, I've heard the shanks out there a lot of times on the Coues deer have a lot of like cactus prickles, or I don't even know what you call them, but
Yeah.
in them, or did you use them then, or what?
They actually, yeah, I did. I always do use my shanks, so they do get some cactus in them, but it's usually right in the top layer, so you can kind of see it. And the stuff that was really on the surface, I just picked out, but otherwise they're getting slow cooked anyway. But I think really the culinary stuff, it kind of came after. I've always been interested in cooking. I've never tried to cook anything fancy prior to starting hunting. But when I have this meat and I take it out of the freezer, I go, okay, this is special. Especially on the Coues deer, you have 40 or 50 pounds of meat, and it's like I've got this special stuff right here. So what do I do with it? And so I always try to take that and do something really thoughtful, and that's led me to making some more interesting dishes, I think.
Nice.
And I'm not, I don't have any classical training as a cook or anything. My most formal training was the 2 years I spent working at Subway when I was in high school. And I don't know what that got me. I can stack a sandwich pretty well, but it's really just trying as best I can to be really thoughtful with my ingredients and using them like a precious resource that they are.
So maybe that's where you came up with the inspiration for a Da Bear sandwich
Yeah.
that you did.
That was probably one of the most special things that I think I've made. I talked about a little on that Instagram post. I don't always post a big story with my post on Instagram or anything, but that one was really pretty special to me. I grew up eating at this place called Luke's Italian Deli with my family and my grandfather. We'd go there, and they've just got these amazing Italian beef sandwiches. It's a Chicago transplant that opened up the restaurant ages ago. And my family all came from Chicago and moved to the state in the 80s. But the Italian beef sandwich is just this sopping mess, just dripping with jus, and it's the most delicious sandwich you could eat if you can figure out how to eat it before it turns into this big soggy mess, right? But I was actually given some bear meat by a buddy of mine, Michael Cravens in Phoenix, and if you don't follow him on Instagram, he's absolutely outstanding at MLC Outdoors. But he gave me some bear meat from one of his recent bear hunts, and I was like, it was one of those things where I had this little tiny package of bear meat. I was like, I need to do something really, really special with this. So I was able to hit the nail on the head with that dish, and it was one of the best things I've eaten in a long time.
Yeah, I think I'm actually doing that with the deer neck roast probably sometime this week.
Awesome.
Gonna try to, yeah.
That's another one of those underappreciated cuts. There's the necks.
Yeah, I've been doing the whole Italian beef thing with those for a while. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
A little bit of jardinera in it, some other things.
Oh, it's perfect. Yeah, no, it's the best thing in the world to eat. I don't know if it's at all good for you, but makes my heart feel good.
So anyway, I want to get back to a little bit on the misfire on the Coues deer. What do you think happened there? Was it like a light primer strike? Was the bolt not locked in?
I short cycled the bolt because I didn't know short cycling a bolt was a thing.
It's a common thing. Well, think about this. Your first deer, you're super excited. You're probably, I mean, by yourself, you're amped up. Nobody there to keep you in check. I mean, I guess it's bound to happen, right? I mean, I can't say I've done it, but then again, I've never rifle hunted something by myself either. So,
yeah. And I've got got enough formal training in weapons to kind of understand some stuff, but I'm not formal trained in anything with a bolt, that needs to be cycled by me. So, I'm really comfortable with guns and everything like that, but yeah, I just didn't know short cycling was a thing. My M4 has never done that. So, that was one of those things I just didn't figure out till later. It's one of those lessons learned. So
Yeah. That's actually, I think you're about the second person I've talked to that had the same instance on an animal like that. That's why I kind of just wanted to bring it up to shed
yeah,
light to other people, and maybe somebody will learn from that experience.
absolutely. And it was interesting because I didn't get formal training on a hunting rifle, but it's the same as everything else. Point it in the right direction, keep your finger off the trigger. Same basic rules, right? But just a little bit different, something new to learn. The other things I've learned along with that is not to tighten my scope too tight. Thank God for Vortex sending me sending me a new one, even though I messed up. Um, you know, Things like that. But the whole thing's a learning process, and it wasn't something I learned from my parents or anything. So something hopefully I'll be able to teach my kids before they have to embarrassingly send their scope back to Vortex.
So, needless to say, you didn't have a torque wrench for your tightening of your scope rings then.
I sure didn't, but I sure do now.
Yeah. Okay.
And if anyone doesn't own the Vortex torque wrench, I highly recommend it. It's the best $50 I've spent.
Yep. That's luckily I had somebody. I mean, growing up, my dad was you could probably even say a nut when it came, a fanatic when it came to guns, and he always shot, competition and all kinds of things like that growing up. So I always had that basis or that background to kind of lean back on, and it was more so he's kind of the school of thought to where it's let you fail from your lesson so you'll never forget it.
Yeah.
But he was always there to show you the right way even after after
Well,
you may have screwed up.
I've certainly been taking that advice.
Yeah. So I see you're wearing a Hank Shaw shirt.
Yeah.
So
I mean, he's the master of this space, right? And a space crowded with people cooking cool food. He rises obviously way above the rest.
So would you say that's kind of one of your biggest inspirations as far as cuisine comes from, or you just kind of pull it from all over? Are you following recipes, or are you trying to create your own thing?
It's a little mix of both. One thing I've gotten better about is actually following recipes, because I've always tried to just cook instinctively, but since I don't know anything and I don't have any formal culinary training, sometimes it works better if I follow a recipe. And if I'm gonna follow a recipe, Hank Shaw is not a bad place to start. I
Yeah.
mean, he works off of super cool influences. He's got experience cooking a ton of Central American food, like different African cuisine and stuff like that. So it's really awesome that he's able to bring in, stuff from different cultures and use like the most American food that we have, right? It's the stuff that's been here before everybody else, and making these just awesome dishes out of that. So he's one of the best. I actually found him a little later. I think probably through Meat Eater, just like seeing him cook the Sardinian hare stew and things like that with the California jackrabbits.
Yeah. No, I found it was weird. I found a Hank Shaw, like when I first started listening to podcasts, somehow it popped up, and it was his first season of podcasting that I guess he gave up on. And
Yeah,
it was epic. Just
he is
listening.
back to it now.
Right.
Yeah.
I gotta say, there's less recipes and more talk about the hunting aspect, and I do miss the whole recipe thing. It was like the one he did on fish. I mean, it was like 2 hours of talking about fish, but it was every little detail, and I mean, it's like seared in my brain because I've listened to it like 4 times.
That's
And
awesome. I'll have to go check that out.
yeah, and what's cool is now all those episodes are back up because of him re-upping with his season 2. You can listen to all of season 1.
Okay, I don't think I realized that, so that's awesome.
Yeah, and then I've seen you do a lot of fermenting and things like that. Is that like a Pascal Badour, or but I don't know how you actually pronounce his last name, but is that like a inspiration or no?
I don't know who that is, but I'm gonna have to look him up. I mean, I just love eating pickled foods and fermented foods, and that's part of it. I think I get a lot of my ideas from Brad Leone over at Bon Appetit. He's awesome. He doesn't do a ton with wild game, but he does have a show on there. It's called oh shucks, I'm blanking, but he's got a cool show where he goes out and does different things. He's done like a pheasant hunting episode, and I think they did a hunting episode in Hawaii too. But he mostly, I mean, he's a classically trained chef, but one of his big interests is fermenting things. And so I've just, blatantly stolen some of his ideas and just done that stuff because, who doesn't like eating pickled and fermented things? So
Right. I wanted to hit you up for some of that hot sauce that you said you had the extra, but obviously you weren't going to ship it all the way.
Yeah. I gave most of that away, but that was spicy stuff. I'll have to post the recipe up for that.
Yeah. So yeah, I started taking these classes from Pascal. I think it's Bador is his name, but he does a lot of invasivore stuff, and so it's foraging for different wild edibles, and then taking those and fermenting the roots, making kimchi out of them, fermenting the mushrooms. And I followed him for a while, but I guess it's normally his classes. They're always out in California. He lives at near LA or something. But because of the whole COVID thing, he's been doing a lot of classes online right now through Zoom. So I was able to catch a few that were on the weekend, and I've been doing those with his natural vinegar making and all the different ferments and things like that. It's pretty epic. You probably want to check that out.
Yeah, absolutely. That's how I'll have to start spending some time. The foraging thing is really cool too, and it's something that I'm just trying to start to get into. I just missed the choya bud thing before I had to run out of town here. But we were just about to get all our choya buds. They were just getting ready, and they're supposed to be a really cool ingredient to work with. And I think Hank Shaw just did another reminder on that. Prickly pear I like to get out and do every year because I like to use that. But we've got a bunch of cool stuff in the desert. People kind of think of it as a barren landscape, but it's so full of life, and it's really neat to see the different ways that we can eat that life.
Can you touch on that chua bud or whatever it's called a little bit more so that people understand and know what that is?
Yeah, the choya cactus is this gnarly cactus. They've got these long, spindly arms with just spikes everywhere. And if you've ever hiked anywhere in the desert of southern Arizona, you've had this cactus in your legs, and that's probably what the deer are mostly getting in their legs too. It's gnarly stuff. It'll go straight through your pants, straight through your boots. But they get these buds every spring, and they're basically before the flower comes out. They'll do this big bud, and you can burn off all the thorns and pull off all the thorns, blanch them, and then cook them. And they're supposed to have like an artichoke type flavor to them, like a really good like vegetable flavor. And then you can dehydrate them and reuse them in all kinds of stuff. So the guys that won the cooking contest at the Backcountry Rendezvous last year, a couple of Arizona guys, John Odell and Mike Cravens, they used choya buds as part of the meal that they prepared there.
Nice. What did they prepare?
They did, I'm going to get it wrong. I know part of it was jackrabbit tacos that they made. They did rattlesnake bacon was part of it. And then they did choya buds. I think maybe they made a salad with that. And then they did prickly pear margaritas. So they kind of stuck with the bad boys of the desert, the things that kind of people look down on, and made a really cool dish and took home a trophy.
So is there a rattlesnake season out in Arizona, or how's that work?
I'm not super well versed on it. I don't think it runs a certain time, but there is a limit on how many you can take a year. There's certain species that you can take and certain species you can't take. And I think it's just keeping within the bag limit, and you have to have a hunting license to do it.
That's pretty interesting. So let's talk about your elk hunting. So
yeah,
did you get into that right away then, or was it later on?
Pretty much. I think I applied for elk no, I didn't. I didn't apply for elk my first year. I applied for elk my second year. because the draw for that is a little earlier than the deer draw. So I applied for elk my second year hunting, got drawn for a cow tag, went up and had kind of a troubled hunt with some more lessons learned. But we had a cow tag. It was, running around the woods trying to find one, and just couldn't quite get it together on that hunt. So I went home empty-handed. But that was one of those hunts with some more rifle troubles. I tried to switch from copper, or from a lead ammo to a copper ammo that was the same grain, but they had a different velocity, and that was another thing I didn't know about, and that changed my point of aim and caused me to miss, and it was just like this whole thing. So another lesson learned.
That's
regarding that rifle. And
what caliber was it?
I bought a 30-06. So right after I applied for the deer draw, I was like, okay, well, I can probably borrow a deer rifle, or I can see if I can buy one. And found a Savage 30-06 for a pretty good price, and I picked that up because I can pretty much hunt everything with it, without upgrading. So I was like, if this is going to be my one hunting rifle for a while, 30-06 is the way to go.
Yeah, we could do an entire podcast episode on ammunition.
Absolutely.
It's one of those, just, oh my gosh, there's so much to unpack there. But I will say this, just anybody listening that doesn't know, just changing brands of ammo or type of projectile within the same caliber, even though it's the same amount of grains and everything else, you have to shoot it a lot, because
100%.
you could have 3 that group and then 3 that don't group, and you have to be right on.
And then I had a similar thing this last year. Actually, I'm really hell bent on switching back to copper, and I got 5 different boxes of different copper ammo, and I was like, all right, we're going to the range. We're going to figure this out. We're going to let the barrel cool down. Another thing I had no idea about before. We're gonna do this whole thing. We're gonna do it right, and we're gonna figure out which ammo works. And I finally got this ammo. It was 150 grain, all copper, and it was shooting absolutely great. And then the week before the hunt, I took it back out to the range. I was like, all right, let's open up a new box of ammo. Let's check it out again. And then every single round in the box, darn near, it was about half the rounds in the box, they all had a primer strike and didn't fire. And I was like, okay, so what's going on here? So I had all of these primer struck rounds that hadn't fired, and I was like, so I guess I have to send all this ammo back. So I dug into the other box that I had bought, but I think they probably came from the same lot, so there was something going on with all of these rounds. So I had to again switch back to lead, because I needed to, it was a week before my hunt. I needed some reliable ammo. Was able to get another brand that worked, but another disappointment. So that's going to be my project again for the fall.
Yeah, that's a tough one. But I mean, yeah, you got to take into all kinds of considerations. If you're shooting with a dirty bore at the range, don't clean it before you go out. If you're going to be taking a cold bore shot, definitely shoot in group with cold bore shot, because I mean, and then depending on, say you go to another state, then you got to take into other considerations. What elevation are you going to be at? What's the temperature going to be? I mean, that all changes, and it's crazy to think about, but it's something that does need to be talked about and definitely discussed, because I mean, you're going out there and spending all that money for a tag, maybe not an Arizona resident tag. It's a lot cheaper than something that I would be paying, but at the same time, I mean, say I'm coming from here and I'm going out to Arizona and it's warmer than when I'm sighting in here. That could be a big problem too.
Absolutely. And I mean, the biggest thing for me is I want to keep filling my freezer. So I don't want a $20 box of ammo to, take 300 pounds of meat out of my pocket, because I didn't prepare properly. So,
that's
and for me, as like a, kind of a gun guy by necessity only, I really wish I had something that was a little more plug and play, but it's part of the process.
Yeah. So have you gotten an elk at this point, or was that your first elk hunt then?
That was my first elk hunt. I didn't get drawn the following year, and now I have another tag this year. So another cow tag. So I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, I think I've got like 4 I think I've got 4 points in Arizona. I'm going to try and capitalize on them next year. That's my plan. I don't know if I've actually, I put in the first year, obviously didn't draw, but I, shot for the moon and was hoping to see what I could get. Got my point, and then the past couple of years, I've just been so tied up with different things. I was like, man, even if I draw, it just wouldn't work out. So I'm really, really hoping with 4 points, or maybe even fly out there sometime this summer if all this stuff goes away, and do my hunter safety course out there and get that extra point. So when I apply, I can have 5 and do that. But
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm really just hoping to kind of expand just a little bit. I'm not one of those guys that's looking for a trophy of a lifetime. I just want to get out and I want to hunt elk.
And that's kind of how I am. I think I used 3 bonus points on a cow elk tag, which I'm perfectly happy with. I'd love to take a bull elk at some point. I think that'd be great. I think it'd be awesome to hunt the rut. I think that would be a totally cool experience. But if I can get a whole bunch of elk in my freezer, that's where I'll be really excited.
Yeah, me too. I mean, the hunt is kind of the trophy. Everything after that you get is a bonus, as long as you're bringing home something and had a good time. But so do you hunt archery at all, or is it something you've gotten into? Or
I've just started hunting archery. I've had a bow for a while, and I'd been kind of nervous to really get into it, but I got it tuned up last summer, and really started hammering it pretty hard. Went out on my first archery deer hunt, which was unsuccessful. I didn't have a whole lot of time to go. At that point I had a 1-year-old, or no, gosh, how old was she? I don't know. I've got a toddler at home, so she was real little. So I had a little bit of time to get out, and I'm lucky that I can hunt, within an hour of my house in really cool Coues deer country. Was able to get out, was able to find some bucks, and of course, I had no idea how to stock them appropriately, so I sent them on their way, never to be seen again. But I came back with a nice picture, and we'll try again next year. I've gone out with my bow for javelina. I've taken a jackrabbit with my bow. That was a pretty proud achievement for me. So
nice.
Hoping to get something a little bigger at some point. So it's something I'm going to keep working on, keep practicing with it. We're lucky here. We can hunt with our bow before the rifle season. And, if we take a deer in bow season, we can't take another deer in the same calendar year, but we have a pretty generous bow season. And
so the bow season, I know you got like archery for elk, and then it goes rifle, and then do you have like a archery season before and after rifle season? Because I know you do. It's like a real late into January too, right?
We do. So we're pretty lucky. We have it's either August or September. I want to say it's September. Before the rifle season, we have like a month-long archery deer season, which is pretty generous. It's the archery tags are over the counter, so it's like $45 for a resident. You can hunt quite a bit. It's a lot of hunting during hot days at that time of year. You've got your rifle seasons that start in about October. They go through December. And then you've got an additional archery hunt in December. So you've got more time in December where you can use the same archery tag. And then that season goes all the way through January, I think. So it's a separate tag as soon as you hit January 1st. But if you were so inclined, you could take a deer on December 31st and then January 1st. But we do only get one deer per calendar year here.
Now, does that include whether it's a mule deer or a Coues deer then?
It depends on the unit, but a lot of the archery tags are any antlered deer. But there are a few exceptions to that. There's some units where it'll be an antlered whitetail or an antlered mule deer only.
Like a limited type draw unit or something?
There's still the over-the-counter tags, but it's just different restrictions in different units. And then there are some units like the Kaibab where it's, there's a ton of trophy deer up there and you can't take your over-the-counter archery tag up there.
That's one of the ones that takes about like 30 years to get a tag if you're a non-resident.
I don't know. To be perfectly honest, I just want to hunt deer every year, so I can't imagine that I'll ever even apply for that tag. So people take out these world-class, Kaibab mule deer. It's a whole thing, but I don't know. The antlers, they probably make okay soup, I guess, but it's it's not where I'm at. And that said, I've been really lucky. I've taken 2 Coues deer and 1 mule deer, and they've all been pretty nice deer as far as antlers go. I couldn't tell you the measurement to save my life, but they've all been very nice deer that I'm happy to have the horns and skulls on display.
That's pretty cool. I definitely want to one of these days get down there in January and do the whole thing when nothing else is going on. Get down to January and do an over the counter hunt. And I already have my license every year. One of those that I just never use it, but I
Yeah,
gotta buy the license in order to buy the tag.
and the tag's not that expensive, and Arizona in January is probably a little better weather-wise than Arizona and Illinois. So, if it's cold, it might be 40 that day.
Yeah. So let's talk about. I saw you won a cooking contest and actually got a pretty cool prize, a
Yeah,
Traeger grill.
I was yeah, that was another lucky day. Um, Went down to Yuma. Yuma has this huge dove event every year. And this last year in September, I think it was about the week after opening day for our dove season, which we have a pretty good dove season as well. The week after the opening day, they had backcountry hunters and anglers and game and fish put on this dove cooking competition. And God, there was something like 8 or 10 teams competing, including John Odell's team, the guy who won the Rendezvous last year. Fortunately for me, I was cooking with Mike Cravens, the other guy. I was cooking with his wife, so I had a good chef with me there, and we were able to make it come together. We tried to take some local ingredients. I made some, we made some mesquite pancakes with prickly pear maple syrup, and did a fried dove on that, and then made like a dove bacon type, like a candied dove, and made that onto an avocado toast, and then some prickly pear limeade along with it. And I think our local ingredients and stuff like that, and we did the brunch theme. It just kind of came together, and we were able to walk out of there with the prize.
It
And
looked pretty epic.
it's nice. The Traeger Pro 570, donated by Traeger to the Backcountry Hunters Arizona chapter. I mean, awesome prize. I use it all the time, so that was killer. I got to take the thing out of the box and put it in the back seat of my Toyota Corolla and drive back. I was actually working up at Luke that weekend, so I made the trip right after work, sped out there, competed, and drove back before work the next morning.
Nice.
So, killer experience.
You deserved a win after you got beat out on the hike to hunt challenge. So.
Oh yeah.
So if anybody doesn't know, I'll just explain it. It's a kind of an inside joke, but it was one of those type of deals where I started following David to keep your friends close and your enemies closer type of deal. I knew he was competition to keep an eye on him, but we ended up doing best costume on the trail, and we both dressed as actually my daughter dressed as Teddy Roosevelt, and him and his wife went out in the desert and dressed as Teddy Roosevelt, and they ended up putting it up to a vote, and fortunately I beat him out, and I got a really awesome spotting scope. So he definitely deserved the win for the Traeger.
No, and that was awesome. It was funny because that was like I'd been working that week to get all the costumes and everything together. We got the little teddy bear suit for my daughter, and we got all that together. And then I think it was the same day we posted our pictures, and it was for the next day. And that was awesome. I mean, that was perfect with you as the horse and the Teddy Roosevelt on the back. That was absolutely perfect. So,
yeah, thank you. I thought that was awesome. And
yeah,
and I was looking.
That was funny.
Yeah. So the same day, like he said, pictures were posted, and it was like, oh crap! I told the wife, exactly. Somebody else has got the same idea.
I was like, that's a lot of Teddy Roosevelt.
Yeah, that's cool though. It was fun.
Great minds think alike, right?
Yep. And then so that's how I ended up started to follow you, and then here we are interviewing you now because just like I said, check him out on his Instagram because he's got some really really cool really cool dishes out there, and it's kind of exciting to see that somebody later in life decides to hunt and ends up doing so well, and really taking that cuisine to another level. It's kind of probably a good point to wrap it up. So you want to tell people where they can find you?
Yeah, I'm at a DSR_outside on my Instagram, and yeah, check that out. I mean, it's been an awesome journey. It's been a really great thing, and I'm super grateful that I've gotten involved in not just hunting, but also the hunting community. Became a regional director for the Arizona chapter of the Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, and it's an awesome organization nationwide, and dipping up into Canada too now, I think. So those guys are outstanding. Love being a part of that, and I love working with them and trying to set an example for my kiddo to be thoughtful about the environment and do what we can to help. So it's been awesome, and I really appreciate you having me on here. I think it's you got an awesome show, and I saw the laundry list of guests you had, so I'm certainly in pretty great company here. So no, it's an honor to be on here.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it, and it's been good talking to you. And you have a good day.
Awesome. You too.
And once again, thank you so much for listening to the Publicly Challenged podcast. I hope you enjoyed the show, and if you did, please subscribe on whatever platform it is you're listening to. Also, if you could leave a review, that would help us out. And you can check us out on Instagram or at publiclychallenged.com. And once again, thank you so much for listening to the show.